Hey folks, everything new under the sun. Just looking at the news, and an interesting story about the gold window being shut by Nixon, and it's the anniversary, or was August 15th, in the year 1971. Nixon took everybody off the gold standard. In auspicious anniversary, Nixon slammed shut the gold window. 51 years ago this week, Nixon slammed shut the gold window and eliminated the last vestige of the gold standard. Now, why is that important? Well, we're gonna take a look at it. It's interesting, and certainly the Bible speaks about gold and silver in the last days. Did you know that? In the last days, in the tribulation, this last 7 years, it says that people will throw their gold and silver into the streets because at that point, during the wrath of God, it won't make any difference. You can't buy your way out of any of the trouble that's happening in the last days. So don't rely on gold and silver for that. But will it get you through an economic collapse or depression? It absolutely will. And if all we are going to see in the next few months or years is 1929, then gold and silver may be of use. But if what we actually are seeing is quite literally the end of the world as we know it, the 7-year period, and the wrath of God coming in the last half of that, last 3.5 years, triggered by the abomination of desolation in the Third Temple, then it's not going to help you for much. So August 15th, 1971, the gold standard was removed, and all of a sudden inflation took off and money printing took off, and the U.S. government and the central bank were then able to basically print as much as they wanted to. There's no limit anymore if you don't tie your money to anything. Now it is tied to oil in some fashion, but not really, because they can still print money out of thin air, and that's what's causing all the inflation right now. The trillions of dollars printed, basically. Muammar Gaddafi. He wanted to take, this is from the American.com, he wanted to take Libya towards a gold standard, or at least a gold-backed dinar. And he was trying to do that. And what would happen if he did that? Well, other countries might start doing that. The U.S. doesn't like that because the U.S. Wants to control everything. They don't want gold-backed anything because that would devalue the U.S. Dollar. Well, oil, of course, has been mentioned frequently. Libya is Africa's largest oil producer. But one reason in particular for Gaddafi's fall from grace has gained significant traction among analysts and segments of the non-Western media, central banking, and global monetary system. According to a few observers, Gaddafi's plan to quit selling Libyan oil in U.S. dollars, demanding payment instead in gold-backed dinars, was the real cause. So why did he die? Many believe the real cause was because he was threatening the United States currency, the greenback, as the world reserve currency, and they didn't want anybody to trigger a rush to gold-backed anything, gold-backed currency, because that would mean that the U.S. wouldn't be able to print money out of thin air anymore, and that would be bad for all these bankers who want to just print, and give lots of money to their friends and colleagues and big companies, and generally cheat the system. Well, that's interesting, but that's history, and of course Gaddafi's gone now, but he attempted to go to a gold back standard, and he was taken out. This is from Zero Hedge. Zimbabwe, hail success of gold coin issuance, lower denominations coming. Declaring its July launch of 1-ounce gold coins a success, Zimbabwe's central bank says it will begin issuing and selling coins in a smaller gold denomination this fall. It says gold coins in units of 1/10 ounce, quarter ounce, half ounce for sale, in effect mid-November 2022. The coins, which can be purchased from approved banks, were introduced to combat rampant inflation. And yes, it does fix inflation because then you have a solid object of known value and of known limited status in terms of the mining of it, which prevents printing money out of thin air. You can't print money if it's backed by gold because there's only so much gold, so there can only be so much money. Well, the central bank doesn't like this because they can't play their game anymore. They can't print money out of thin air. And if they truly want to fix inflation, they would go back to a gold standard. But they wouldn't do that because they wouldn't be as rich as they are. There wouldn't be as much money for the elite as there is now with all the money printing. And so they don't want to go back to a gold-backed currency. And I suggest to you that could Zimbabwe's future be limited if they continue ahead with this, if this is a success and citizens do buy into it? Will other countries start going that way? And then that would play into the fears of the United States and other countries around the world who are all too happy to not have anything backing their currency as long as they can print money out of thin air and go into lots of debt. Well, very interesting, but this has solved the inflation issue. So again, if the central bank of the U.S. wants to solve inflation, go back to a gold-backed currency. But you'd have to be a lot of people who'd have to take a large haircut if that were the case. So interesting story. There's a look at the coin. If I scroll up there, Zimbabwe gold 1 ounce coin. And so this would be a big deal. So look for something to happen in Zimbabwe, to be honest, something similar to what happened in Libya to force them away from a gold standard. The Antichrist isn't going to use a gold standard, by the way. He wants to print money out of thin air, and he wants to be rich and have lots of power and control. And so he is absolutely going to deal with this as well. No world government wants a gold-backed anything. They want ones and zeros on a computer screen with which they can turn you on, turn you off, limit your access to the economy, limit your buying and selling if you're not obeying what the government has asked you to do. And if you're not a good citizen, they can limit your access to airplanes or travel or food, whatever it may be. They want to control it. And if there is gold backed anything and you have gold, they can't control what you do with it. They can't track it. They can't trace it. The global government and the world government and the Antichrist, as spoken of in the Bible in the last days, will control everything monetarily. So they're going to squash this real quick. So keep your head up. Don't be surprised if something happens in Zimbabwe, to Zimbabwe. Something happens generally related, surrounding this gold-backed currency that right now is fixing their inflation, because other countries will start to go there if it fixes their inflation as well, and that's very bad for U.S. hegemony and the World Economic Forum and folks like that. They don't want to have to get gold. And also note that again in the last days, at some point, gold and silver is not going to help you when the wrath of God falls. You're going to throw it into the streets. You can't eat it, and it's not going to save you. So. Interesting story out of Zimbabwe, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.